Onions, Chapter 2, The Black Cat. C.W. was in love. No one knew about his secret passion. It all began with the Spider-Man issue of comic book number 194 the year before. Spidey had been introduced to Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. She was the daughter of Walter Hardy, a famous cat burglar. Felicia had learned Daddy's burglaring tricks and added some special powers of her own to become a good criminal. Spidey changed all that, and C.W. couldn't wait to get the latest installment. He had every Black Cat comic produced and always managed to come up with the 40 cents to buy them. C.W. stopped in front of the store, gazed in the window. The latest issues were lined up, temptingly laid out on a green velvet backing with an overhead spot illuminating their beauty. There was The Trial of Galatas, Dark Phoenix Saga, She-Hulk, The Hulk, Alpha Flight, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. His heart pounding with anticipation, C.W. picked up his skateboard, opened the door, and limped inside. The store smelled like an old library, moldy and close, like the books were 1,000 years old and needed to be sprayed with disinfectant. The space was small and cramped, but packed with comics. There were books on shelves along the walls, on tables, comics visible through glass under the main counter. There were several other tables with hundreds of back issues of almost every comic book produced. You could browse through them and find some really precious nuggets. There were two other boys hanging out in the store. The only other person was the owner. At least C.W. thought he was the owner. He looked old, maybe Sandrin's age, wore a beard and glasses, was totally bald, and had a face with sharp features, prominent cheekbones, a pointed chin, and large ears that stood straight out. He looked like a guy who'd just been tapped on the shoulder, turned around and seen a zombie or vampire looming over him. C.W. felt good, really, really good. With enough money to buy several comics, he decided to take his time, to enjoy every second and not to hurry. He'd been speeding through his whole life, from one foster home to another, from one stupid school to another one even more stupid, from one bad experience to the next, and so on. But now, without a watch, he was wallowing in the timeless universe of pure pleasure. He wandered slowly around the store, checking under piles of comics, looking for some of his favorites and others he'd never heard of. He climbed a ladder that slid sideways along the shelves to check out comics high on the wall. He then studied the latest releases under lock and key inside the glass shelves on the counter. After much deliberation and deep thought, C.W. settled on the latest Black Cat comic with Felicia on the cover, dressed in her usual revealing outfit. He added the Dark Phoenix Saga comic. He had them all, including the one in which Jean Grey died in the arms of her hero, Cyclops. C.W. had been nuts about Jean. He'd read every comic she'd appeared in and had been devastated by her death. But when he discovered Felicia, he switched affections. C.W. had seen a cardboard advertisement for the Black Cat propped up in a comic book store 3 foster homes ago in Tucson and made off with it when the clerk was looking the other way. One of his prized possessions, he was sitting on his desk in Mrs. Williams' home at this very moment. On the way to the checkout, C.W. picked up the latest issues of The Trial of Galatas, The Hulk, Alpha Flight, and the Fantastic Four. His purchases should probably cut his fiver in two, but He was glad to be able to get the comics he loved. The old guy was standing behind the counter. It's an ancient brown mechanical cash register. A throwback to the 60s, it had seen better days. The two boys, probably in their early teens, were being checked out, and when it was CW's turn, the owner looked at him and smiled. "Hey, where'd you get all that hair?" he asked in a friendly voice. CW was surprised. He thought the guy would be nasty like most comic book clerks. "Well, ask my mom if you can find her," he replied with a laugh. The man eyed the young boy standing in front of him and nodded. CW instantly felt a connection. It seemed the guy knew what he'd been through. "My cash register isn't working," the owner continued. "A cockroach got into the electrical wiring and fouled everything up. That's why I'm not using it." "Okay," CW said, and placed his purchases on the counter. "Well, I see you've got good taste, young man. The Trial of Galatas and the Dark Phoenix Saga are two of my most popular comics. How'd you feel about Jean Grey?" "Well, they didn't think they had to kill her off," CW said. "She was a great character, but, well, I like Felicia Hardy more." The old guy laughed. "Yeah, I can see why. She's pretty shapely and pretty sassy. She's a good balance for Spider-Man, don't you think?" "Yeah," CW muttered, glancing out the window. Oh, it was getting dark. He was going to be late again. Mrs. Williams had warned him about staying away from home after school. "I gotta go." The owner took CW's money and gave him change. "You want me to put them in a sack?" "No, thanks. I'll take them like this." "Okay, thanks," the owner said. "My name is Romario. Ram for short. Hope to see you again." "Yeah." CW stepped outside. He placed his skateboard on the ground, stuck the 6 comics under his belt, and pulled his shirt down to hide the evidence. He didn't want Mrs. Williams to know where he'd been all afternoon.